All right, today we're going to dive deep, and I mean literally, into a world you use every single second, but probably haven't ever seen. It's the secret, physical backbone of our digital lives. And to really get it, we need to start with one big question. So, picture this. A super important piece of the global internet just goes dark. Your connection, maybe millions of others, is just gone. And the problem? It's not in some server farm or on a telephone pole. Nope. The break is at the very bottom of the ocean. We're talking total darkness, crushing pressure. So how in the world do you even start to fix something like that? And get this isn't some rare, once-in-a-lifetime thing. It's a constant threat. And it's a threat to the system that carries a whopping 95% of all our global data. Yeah, you heard that right. The internet, the cloud, isn't really in the clouds at all. It's deep in the ocean.
Okay, so before we figure out how to fix this broken cable, we kind of have to get to know the crime scene. Think of it like this huge, invisible highway for data that wraps all around the planet. And the scale of this thing, it's just mind-boggling. We're talking about 1.4 million kilometers of cable. To put that in perspective, that's enough cable to go from the Earth to the moon and back, twice. And these things are deep, like really deep, sometimes as far down as 8,000 meters. That's deeper than Mount Everest is tall and way, way beyond where most submarines can even go.
So, what about the pressure down there? It's just insane. Over 5,000 kilograms per square inch. I love this analogy. It's like trying to balance a full grown African elephant right on the tip of your pinky toe. Ouch. Which leads to a really good question, right? In this age of wireless everything, with satellites zipping around the planet, why on earth are we still using this kind of old school system of physical wires?
Well, it really comes down to two big things, capacity and cost. I mean, just look at these numbers. One of these undersea cables, it can handle 80 million 4K video streams at the same time. 80 million. A satellite, it can only handle about 24,000. So for our world that's just constantly hungry for more data, cables are just way faster, way cheaper, and way, way more efficient. It's not even close.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does this whole thing actually work? You're probably picturing these massive, thick cables, right? But the part that does all the work, it's surprisingly tiny and delicate.
Yeah, buried inside all those protective layers, the steel, the copper, the plastic, the real magic happens in a single strand of glass that's as thin as one of your hairs. So how can something so small carry our entire digital world? The secret is light. See, our data gets converted into these little pulses of light that just shoot down this glass core at incredible speeds. And thanks to this really cool physics principle called total internal reflection, the light basically gets trapped inside. It bounces perfectly off the inside walls of the fiber, which means the signal can't escape, and it can travel for thousands and thousands of kilometers without losing hardly any of its strength. It's brilliant. So think about it. The journey your email takes or the movie you're streaming, it follows these 4 steps, and it's all happening at pretty much the speed of light. First, your data gets converted into light. Then it's transmitted across the ocean. Every 100 kilometers or so, it gets boosted by a repeater to keep the signal strong. And finally, on the other end, it's reconstructed back into data that your computer can read. Sounds simple, but in reality, it's an absolutely incredible feat of engineering. Now, this whole network is built to be super tough, but like we said at the start, it's not invincible. So what in the world could actually break a cable that's designed to handle the pressure of an elephant? You're probably thinking of something super dramatic, right? Like something out of a movie. And hey, you're not totally wrong. Giant earthquakes can cause undersea landslides that just snap these cables. And believe it or not, we've actually seen videos of sharks trying to take a bite out of them. But while all that stuff does happen, it's not the main reason these cables break. Nope. The number one threat to the internet doesn't come from Mother Nature or some mythical sea monster. It comes from, well, us. Yeah, that's right. The biggest culprit is actually bottom trawling fishing. You've got these huge fishing boats dragging these really heavy nets and gear right along the seafloor. And when one of those accidentally snags a cable, it's not just a broken wire. It can mess with international banking, it can cut off business communications, it can literally disconnect entire countries from the rest of the world. Okay, so a fishing boat breaks the cable. The internet goes down. Now what?
Now comes the real detective work. How do you find one tiny breakpoint along thousands of kilometers of cable buried at the bottom of the ocean? Well, engineers have this amazing tool. Think of it like a radar system, but instead of radio waves, it uses light. From a station on land, they shoot a pulse of light down the fiber optic cable. When that pulse hits the break, a little bit of that light reflects and bounces all the way back. And by measuring exactly how long that reflection took to come back, they can calculate the precise distance to the break. It's incredibly accurate.
So once they've pinpointed the location, it's time to call in the cavalry. A special ship with a super skilled crew gets sent out to perform what is basically open heart surgery on the internet.
And the whole repair process is this really delicate, multi-step operation. First, they send down these robotic submarines, ROVs, to find the two broken ends and carefully bring them up to the ship. Then, on the ship, in this super clean room, technicians have to painstakingly splice in a new piece of cable. They're literally fusing those hair-thin glass fibers back together perfectly. Once it's all fixed, the repaired cable is gently lowered back down to the bottom of the sea.
So the next time you're streaming a movie or hopping on a video call, just take a second to think about this. This giant, physical, and surprisingly fragile network that makes everything possible. It's a really powerful reminder that the cloud isn't some magical thing up in the sky. It has an actual, physical home on the ocean floor. And that leaves us with a pretty big question, right? In a world that depends so much on this hidden system, are we really doing enough to protect it?